You gonna come in? Hi everyone, this is Milo. I'm gonna do my, well, these videos are normally called labour and delivery stories, but I didn't go into labour and I didn't really deliver the baby. I just led there. Basically, I'm going to talk you through what happened, why I had an emergency C-section, and basically just my experience. Yeah, I don't really know where to start, so I guess it's relevant to mention that when I was about 33 weeks pregnant, so this was 2 weeks before I had Oscar, randomly I had, what happened? I was lying in bed and it was about 11 o'clock at night, and I had shooting pains in my arm and my mouth went numb. Yes? My mouth went numb and my tongue went numb. And my eyes went really, really blurry, so I still don't know what happened, if that's to do with anything. But yeah, so that happened, and I felt fine, sort of, after, and I had a bit of spotting as well, so those were really, really random symptoms. But I think when you're pregnant, a normal symptom becomes a scary symptom. So I rang the labour line, not the labour line, what was it? I rang the hospital, whatever the number is. I think it's the labour line, yeah. So I rang the labour line, I just said, oh, can I come in to be monitored because, you know, I'm having these... No, that was what I did. I rang 111 and I told them that I was pregnant and that I was having these symptoms. So they said, okay, well, we'll put you through to the midwife that's on, and obviously it was late at night. So I got dressed and then we went into the hospital, and it was the same place where I had all my scans. So we went in, sat down, and they took like 20 minutes to see us. There was a couple of other women in there, not sure why they were there. So they then took us in, and it was quite, it wasn't scary, but it was quite like unnerving. Mostly we just wanted to go home and watch TV. So we were sat in the room, me and Luke, and they put me on a bed, and then they put this big band around your bump with a circular monitor, so that goes where they think the baby is, so they'll move it depending on whether the baby's at the top or the bottom of the bump. So you put that on, and then you have this little button like this, and you have to press that every time the baby kicks, and then that's all looped up to a machine next to you that's got your heartbeat, the baby's heartbeat, and it bleeps every time you press the buzzer, and it makes a noise as well when you press it. So we went in, I had these weird symptoms, and then the midwife didn't really know what they were, and they'd gone by the time I got to the hospital as well, so it's kind of irrelevant. But she kept me in, the baby was fine, the heart rate was fine, he was kicking loads, so yeah, so she sent me away. So that was fine, and I knew lots of women that had gone in to be monitored and been sent home like an hour later because, you know, the baby was just having a funny 5 minutes, whatever. Yeah, so that was about 33 weeks, and then everything was fine, everything was peachy. I was going to my hypnobirthing classes, yeah, preparing for labour. And then, so typically when Oscar was in my belly, he was always really, really active between 7 and 10. It was a Sunday, and we had got up, we went to the local pub that we love. That was actually where we started dating, because I worked there and Luke came in as a customer, and that's how we got to know each other. So we went in there, we had a roast dinner, it was really nice, and then went home, hung out. So it was a Sunday night. We spent the evening watching TV, and I was like, he's just not kicking as much as he usually is. So I tried everything, like lying on one side, lying on the other side, drinking something cold, drinking something hot, drinking something sugary. But I remember hearing that if you have to use these methods to make your baby kick, then you shouldn't really go on that. So the baby should be kicking regardless of if you're having, you know, hot drinks, cold drinks, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I just don't feel like this is right. I just don't feel like he should be this quiet, because normally he's quite pushy and kicky. It was 11 o'clock in the evening. We got into bed and I was like, look, I just don't think that I should go to sleep thinking that when I wake up he'll be okay, because that's like 8 hours of wondering if he'll be okay. And I don't think it's something that you can really risk and just be like, oh, let's find out if he's okay later, let's leave it a bit later, let's let's see how he feels. Like, you know, I've been told the whole way through my pregnancy to count the kicks, and I never counted the kicks. When I first heard it, I thought, oh God, okay, am I going to have to count, like, okay, you know, in 10 minutes he's done 10 kicks or something, whatever it is. But he was such an active baby that I felt like I didn't need to count the kicks. I just knew that from whatever time in the evening it was, 7 till 10, that he would always kick. So I was like, I don't want to leave it to the morning, let's just go in. Worst case scenario, we go in and we come back an hour later. It's not the end of the world. It's not so bad that we should risk something going wrong just because we want to go to sleep. So we got up, and I remember we've got 2 dogs, so the dogs were in bed. Yeah, the dogs were in bed. So then I remember leaving the lounge, leaving the door, and I said, you know, we can have a baby when we come back. And Luke was like, no, we won't have a baby. Yeah, so I had my hospital bag packed really early, and I remember my friend telling me that, oh, you know, you've reached the green mark, it's 32 weeks or something, that if the baby comes now, everything's more or less formed, baby's got a really high chance of being okay. So I had everything prepared. I'm super over organised when it came to the baby. So I think that's why I stayed so calm. So I had my hospital bag, we didn't take it with us, but it was packed, it was ready. I had everything I needed. So I had the bag packed. I knew the baby was over this green mark, 32 weeks, so 35 weeks and 1 day when we went. We went off to the hospital, so this was 11 o'clock. And we were sat in the waiting room, same waiting room as we had all our scans in. But it was literally dead. Like, there was us 2 sat down and there was another couple. We got there at 11, and then it took them an hour to see us. So nobody even came up to us and said, oh, sorry, it's taking so long. Like, we literally just sat there and were waiting. And then at 12 o'clock, so midnight, we then finally got in one of the beds. The nurse was really, really laid back, because they do. They get so many people in for monitoring, and as soon as they sit down, the baby starts kicking again, and it's like, oh, okay, like, we'll send you home, you know. Sometimes people do stay in overnight to check the baby is okay, but most of the time you just get sent home. Yeah, so it took an hour for them to see us. She came in really relaxed. She set me up on the wires and stuff, and ironically I actually had my hypnobirthing book, the book that I'd got from my classes, with me to read, as I knew we might be there for a long time. So I had that to read, and we were sat there, and he wasn't kicking much at all. I think it's one of those things where I was worried, but I wasn't panicking, but I was worried that he wasn't kicking as much as normal. So I think I was trying to count kicks that weren't really big kicks as kicks, if that makes sense. So normally I'd be like, he's kicking loads, like my stomach would be going crazy, and I would have gone do 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 do, but it was just going, and I was like, oh, that's a kick. So then I pressed it. So my tolerance for what was a kick went way down, because I was nervous that he wasn't kicking. So she came in, and even the things that I had counted as kicks still weren't enough for her to be comfortable. So she was like, right, okay, and it wasn't the kicks that were bothering her, it was his heart rate. So she came in and she pulled out the paper that it'd been printing on, and she was like, right, okay, it was going 210 beats per minute. So I think a normal adult beats maybe 60 beats per minute, maybe 80 when they do exercise, I think it is. And then a baby's heartbeat is around 140, 150. So his was nearly double what it should have been. So she came in smiling, and then as soon as she saw the paper and how fast his heart was beating, she said, right, okay, okay, and she took all the wires off, and then she said, okay, we're just going to take you to the delivery suite. So she took us to the delivery suite, and I think because they said they'd taken so long to see us because they were short on beds, so even when she said to me, I'm going to take you to the delivery suite, in my head I thought, oh, that must be because somebody needs this bed, and they must have spare beds in the delivery suite. Like, the word delivery didn't click to me at all. So we went in this private room, and the nurse, the midwife, sorry, she said, okay, I'm just going to go get the doctor, and he's going to do a sonogram just to check, because baby's heartbeat looks a bit fast. She basically said that his heart was beating so fast that the machine couldn't keep up with how fast it was beating, so it was making an inaccurate reading. So that was why they needed a different type of machine to work out how fast his heart was beating. The doctor came in with like the same machine that they do the ultrasounds on, with the jelly and the dot on your stomach. So, but he had a little mini TV screen on like a wheelie table, so he wheeled it in, and he went over the baby, and he went over his heart, and the heart was going absolutely crazy, like, honestly, like do 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 do. So his heart was going so fast, and he said, right, okay. So he put the Doppler back down, he stood up, and he said, okay, excuse me for a second. He walked out the room. So in the room with me still, I had 2 nurses now. So the doctor left, and the doctor came back with another man. So now I had 2 nurses and 2 men and Luke in the room. And he said, okay, this is the anaesthetist. And I was like, right? No. Okay, so at this point, So when the doctor left, Luke said, do you want me to text your mum? And I said, no, be fine, like, be fine. You don't need to text my mum. Because it was obviously like 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it was, yeah, 1 o'clock in the morning. So I said, no, don't text my mum, be fine, everything's fine. I think I was just in denial, like it didn't click to me that we were in the delivery room, it didn't click to me that, you know, the doctor had left without saying anything. So yeah, so I said, don't text my mum, it'll be fine. He left the room and he came back with the anaesthetist and he said, okay, this is the anaesthetist. He said, so basically, the baby's heart is beating very, very fast. And if you were earlier on in your pregnancy, we would give you a drug to slow the heart rate down. But because you're so far along and the baby is it's 35 weeks, so the baby's developed past that green line, we're just going to take him out. He just said it like that. We're just going to take him out. Oh, I was like, right, okay, right, okay. I think you need to text my mum now. We had no idea what was going on, and I literally couldn't believe it. I think I was so calm because I didn't have time to properly react. I didn't have time to digest what was happening. I think if they'd said, okay, you're going to have the baby, you're going to have a C-section because his heart's beating too fast, your surgery slot is in 3 hours, I would have spent the next 3 hours petrified, shaking, absolutely petrified. But it was done so quickly. So the anaesthetist came back in, and then they brought in another nurse. So the nurse said, okay, darling, I'm going to put you in a cannula now. And I've never had I've had a cannula, I think, when I was younger, but I had one of those, I had numbing cream on and then like one of those sticky pads, like a smiley face on it. I think I've had a cannula before, I'm not sure. So she said, okay, we're gonna prep you for surgery. I need you to get dressed. So I got dressed and I put on a robe. So I put on a robe, like a backless robe. And then, yeah, so then she said, okay, darling, I'm gonna put you a cannula in now. So they tried on my right arm and it was excruciating. It was so painful. I would honestly say that was the most painful bit of the whole thing. The most painful bit was her trying to put this cannula in. So it wouldn't go in. She said, oh, sorry, I can't find the vein. So at this point, I think she had my arm like that and I was going like this, and I had Luke's hand and I was shaking and I was going, it was the weirdest noise, but it hurt so much. And she said, oh, I don't think it's going to go in this hand, we'll try the other hand. So I thought, right, okay. So this one was then bandaged up because she like made it bleed or whatever. So then she tried in the other hand, which she tried to put it in the back of my hand and that didn't work. So she actually put it in my wrist. I think it was there on the side here. So she put that one in and then she capped it over. There was nothing in it. She capped that over and then she said, right, okay, now I'm going to give you an anti-sickness jab in your thigh. So I said, okay. So it went in the top of my leg and that was so painful too. But I think the one in my hand was like a long pain, like I had to like grit and bear it. But the one in my leg was just in and out and it stung so much after she took it out. I remember saying, fuck. So then they said, right, okay, we're going to go take Luke and we're going to get Luke in his scrubs and then you're going to come with us. So then I was in my gown, I had my cannula in, she prodded my leg. They took me, I think they took me in the lift then. And then they took me upstairs and then we wheeled into this room and there was about 12 nurses in there. 12 nurses and doctors. The anaesthetist was an Irish guy called, can't remember. But he was really nice, like he just kept the whole atmosphere really chilled. You know, him and Luke made a few not jokes at my expense, but you know, little light-hearted jokes. Yeah, so I came in the room, I was on this bed and they said, okay, so we need you to get up on the side. So they wheeled me in on my bed. They said, okay, we need you to get up on the side of this bed. So they all helped me get up onto it. And then I was sat there and I had to sit on the edge of this bed and lean completely forward so that my back was arched, which isn't easy anyway when you're 35 weeks pregnant and I was a big pregnant girl. So I leaned forwards and I am not good with needles. Like being pregnant was my first ever blood test and I hated that. And I had 2 of them. You know, I've always been the one at school that hates needles. I've always been the one to chicken out of jabs and stuff. Like I always overreact and they're just my worst nightmare. I'm fine with them now because I've had so many. But so I had a spinal. So so an epidural is an injection. It's like a drip in your back. So they can turn it up and turn it down. So basically they turn it up when you're in labour to numb the pain of your contractions, but then they turn it down so that you can feel when to push. But a spinal is just completely numb. They have no control over, if they want to reverse the effects, they just have to wait for the spinal to wear off. So I was bent over the table, my back arched, and I had to have 1 needle first to numb my back, and then they put the spinal in. I was leant over and he was feeling my spine, and he said to me, so Olivia, does that feel like it's in the middle? I thought, why are you trusting me? How do I know what the middle of my spine spine feels like. No one in my entire life has ever asked me if this feels like the middle of your spine. So I just thought, yeah, okay, that feels like the middle of my spine. And he said, right, okay, so then he put this needle in. And I think because I couldn't see it and I had no idea what was going on, it obviously stung, but it wasn't as bad as, you know, something's going in your arm or going in your inside elbow. So it wasn't that bad. The anaesthetic injection wasn't that bad. And then he said, okay, I'm just going to wait for that to go numb. He said, can you feel this? And he was poking my back. So no, I can't feel that. And then he put in the spinal, and I didn't really feel it, but it just sort of felt like cold, like I could feel it, I could feel the medicine going in. So then I was in theatre, and then it goes numb so quickly. Like, I couldn't believe how quickly. Within seconds of this spinal going in, my legs were so heavy. So I had all these nurses help me lie down on this bed, and the bed's tilted slightly to the left because they say when you're pregnant or, you know, at any time, your heart's on your left. So if you sleep on your left, if you're lying on your left side, the body pumps the blood around better. So this bed's tilted to the left. And then I was on the bed, they helped me lie down, and it was just crazy. And then I had one arm that had the cannula in, just lying out. I'm not sure why, but it was just lying out, and they had like an armrest. That was like floppy lying out. And then, yeah, and then they had this metal bar, like, that came up like this, around this side, and then instead of having, I've always seen on TV they've got like blue drapes. I think they don't have time, I think they didn't have time to put, you know, a big theatre up of blue drapes and all this blah blah blah. So they just had this metal bar and they draped my hospital gown over it. So I was literally naked underneath this hospital gown. They draped it over, so Luke and I couldn't see any of my body, but my entire body was on show to these 12 nurses and doctors. So yeah, so you're tilted to the left, you can't see anything. I had a little stupid hat on, it was like a pork pie hat, paper one, and Luke had one as well, but his was sort of nicer than mine. And they said, oh, you're not allowed to video it, but you can take pictures of, you know, us and whatever, but not of the operation or anything like that. Because it's an emergency, you can't really like get in their way. So he said, you can take pictures of you two like right now as you're about to have a baby, but you know, don't film the procedure or anything. So they basically said to me, okay, you're going to meet your baby. That was it. When we were in the private room, they said, oh, okay, you're going to meet your baby in 45 minutes. And I thought, oh my god, okay, like 45 minutes, that's absolutely insane. So anyway, we went into the delivery room, into theatre, sorry, and yeah, so I was lying up, I was ready, and then he said, can you feel this? And I said, I can feel you, but it doesn't hurt. I said, why, what are you doing? He said, I'm pinching you. And I've seen it on TV, they get these big pincers and they pinch large sections of your stomach. So I said, no, I can't feel that. And he said, right, okay. So then he got this cold aerosol, it was like a deodorant spray. So basically the spinal numbs you up to under your shoulders. So he started the spray at my feet and he said, tell me when you, no, sorry. He sprayed it on my arm that wasn't numb and said, right, tell me when this spray feels like it did on your arm. So he starts on my feet and he goes all the way up my leg, all the way up my leg, on my chest and the side of my ribs. I can't feel it. I can feel it, but it's not cold. And then it gets to my underarm and I go, oh yeah, it's cold. Did that possibly 12 times on each side, going, right, okay, when's that numb? Okay, when's that cold? Okay, can you feel that? Yep, okay, can you feel that? And I'm glad he did that, because that was so reassuring that he didn't do it once, didn't do it twice, did it so many times. So once he had done all his checks to make sure that I was numb, he then said, okay, we're going to cut you open now. Well, I don't even remember if they said that, but you know, they did the procedure. So they cut me open. I couldn't feel that really. The weirdest part was when they pulled the baby out, and everyone says, oh, it feels like a washing machine, but it felt like to me, I've been thinking about how I can explain this. So if you imagine there's a pile of laundry on your bed and you kneel on your knees, and if you were to put your hands like that and drag the laundry off the bed, that's how it feels. But like someone's doing that so forcefully and, you know, with anger. They're pulling the baby out, like pulling the baby right down. All this tugging was going on. Me and Luke took a few like selfies, which surprisingly we're both like smiling in. So they did all their rumbling around, and then he came out, and then we heard him cry. And at this point I still couldn't see anything. Luke couldn't see anything. So we heard him cry, and then yeah, it's strange because whenever I watch, you know, One Born Every Minute, it's always the cry of the baby that makes me cry. So I'm a massive crier of sad films, watching anyone give birth, like seeing people get, you know, engaged, like anything like that. I just cry at anything. And when he came out and he cried, it just didn't click in my brain. You know, that's your baby crying. Everything just happened so fast that I didn't process it, and I was still shocked, and it sounds bad, but I didn't want to didn't want to fill myself with happiness and with joy just in case I then came crashing down, you know, if something was wrong. So I just sort of plateaued and was just, you know, calm. I was just calm. So then Luke went over and Luke took some pictures of him, and I was just lying there. I think the anaesthetist was, you know, saying something, whatever, to me. So Luke went and took some pictures of him, and then he came back and then he was gone. So I didn't get to see him. I didn't physically see him. I had no idea what he looked like. I had no idea if he was wearing a hat. I didn't know if he was in an incubator. I didn't know if they, you know, he was in a pod or he had wires on him already, anything like that. So then I had to lie there. So the baby was gone. So then it was just me and Luke in the theatre, and the operation to take the baby and the placenta out took, I think it took like 2 minutes. I remember seeing on the whiteboard, you know, baby out. When was he born? 1:20 I think he was born in the morning. Oh my god, I can't remember that. 1:20 I think he was born. So it was like 1:20 baby out, 1:22 placenta out, and then it took them 20 minutes to stitch me up. So I've got a tattoo on my hip of roses, and I remember them just saying, you know, like making jokes like, oh, you've got my work cut out here for me, you know, trying to stitch your tattoo back so that it's in the right place, and they did a really good job. So then, you know, everything just stayed light and breezy. It was strange. So then they wheeled me into another room, which had like 8 beds, but I was the only one in there. So then it was me in a bed, I had my phone, and Luke was there, and there was a woman at the end of my bed just filling in forms. She was so chilled out. So she was just filling in forms, and you know, she was it was as if I hadn't just had a baby, you know. It was so weird. The bed then got propped up again, so I was sort of sat up, not with a massive bump anymore. I didn't have a massive bump anymore. I didn't have a baby in me. I was just sat in this room, and they said, oh, okay, we've just got to keep you here to check that you're okay. So I don't know if that's like them saying, you know, we need, you know, being genuine that we need to check you're okay, or that's them saying, you know, we're making sure the baby's okay before we suggest that you can go see him, you know. So I think they were buying their time by keeping me there, because I was fine. I was literally sat here like I'm talking now, absolutely fine. The only strange symptom that I had was because of the morphine. I think it's morphine, because of the my mouth was the itchiest thing in the entire world. Like it was the strangest symptom, and it carried on for like 6 hours, I think. So I was just going like this, literally like gurning, going like this. It was just so, and I kept going like this and like scratching. It was so bizarre, and I didn't even know that was a side effect. So then, obviously later when we saw everybody, I was just going, oh yeah, thanks, yeah. Oh, it's just so itchy. It was just the weirdest thing. So anyway, I was in this room, and they kept me in that room for 3 hours. So I'd had a baby, and then I just got plonked in this room. So it was 4 o'clock in the morning by this time, about. So the only people that were up was my friend that lived in Dubai, my friend that lived, where was she? Was she in Bali? She was either in Bali or, yeah, she was in Bali. So I had my friend in Dubai, my friend that was out in Bali. Obviously my mum and dad came there, and so did Luke's mum and dad, as soon as they like heard the news. So they were both in the waiting room, and they actually saw Oscar in his incubator as he got wheeled upstairs, because they were in the waiting room. They were in I think they were in, not the main waiting room by the front door of the hospital, but they were in sort of the side room to the theatre. At this point, Luke had seen the baby. Both our parents had seen the baby, and I hadn't seen him. So Luke said, oh, okay, I didn't know I was going to be in this room for 3 hours. I didn't know whether it was going to be, you know, 10 minutes or if it was going to be an hour or whatever. They just said, we need to keep you in here to make sure you're okay. So they came in, they took my blood pressure, and then I was fine or whatever. Just had this weird itching thing going on. And then Luke said, do you want to see the pictures of him? And I said, I just don't know. I don't know if the first time I ever want to see my first child is on a phone. Like it was just so digital. Like it was just really took the specialness out of it, that I didn't get to see him in real life. And it doesn't matter now, but at the time I was like, no, I just want to wait. And I think 10 minutes later I was like, okay, just show me. So he had this little blue hat on, and he was tiny, and he was like covered in gunk, and it was very red, and he had his mouth open like he was crying. So there's 2 or 3 pictures of him. So I saw the pictures, and then we sat in this room, and this woman was filling out the forms, and everyone was just sort of just casually chatting. It was so bizarre. Surprise! I've got different hair. I lost the end of my last video, so I'm gonna have to record the end of my story again. But doesn't matter. So what was I up to? I was sat in this room with this woman who was being really nice, really chatty. Oscar was upstairs in the NICU and I was just literally texting on my phone, texting my 2 friends who obviously had absolutely no idea that I was going to have the baby anytime soon. So I remember texting one friend, she was like, "Shut up, you can't fool me." And I was like, "No, honestly, he's here." And then I got Luke to send me the picture of Oscar. So I sent that to her, and then my other friend that lives in Dubai, she was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it." I think she might have been drunk at the time, but anyway. So we were in that room, and then this woman walks in with a empty like paint bucket, like a white bucket, and it had my placenta in it. So they were gonna send that off for testing to see if they could find out why the baby's heart rate went so high. After I was in that room for 3 hours, still having not seen Oscar, I then got wheeled up into the lift, and then we went upstairs, and then I went through to the room, and obviously it was the middle of the night, so everyone was really like quiet, like whispering and things. I was in my gown and I felt really like weak, and in the photos I looked really pale. I think I might have just been pale anyway. But yeah, so I went into this room, and they said, "Oh hi, like how are you feeling?" And then there was this quite big incubator, and like now that I compare it to the ones that he was in all the time, he was in quite a big incubator. Maybe he just looked really small. But anyway, he was £5'5", and he was honestly that big maybe. He was tiny, and he was lying face down. He had just a nappy on, and he was really, really red. He was really tiny. He was lying to one side with his face sort of facing outwards to where I was. So they wheeled my hospital bed next to the incubator, and it had 2 like windows that you could open the latches and then put your hands in. It was so surreal, honestly. I couldn't get my head around what was happening. So he was there, and he had a cream coloured band that looked like it was made of foam that went across his cheeks like that, and then it also went up here the middle of between his nose like that, and that held on the breathing apparatus on his nose. And then he also had a cannula in, and that had like a big splint on it, like a big foam splint, obviously keep the needle in straight. And then yeah, so then I've just got videos on my phone of me like stroking his leg, because that was all I could do. I've got videos, and he's just making these squeaking noises. It's really bizarre, just making these squeaking noises, and I was just stroking his back, and he looked really hairy, but like sweet hairs, like little white hairs. It was weird. It was, I think, like I said before, had I been prepped and been worrying about this for hours or days, that I would have really worked myself up. I was in such shock that I just couldn't believe, I couldn't put 2 and 2 together that was him. Obviously I knew it was him, but it was so weird to be touching him when 45 minutes before he was in my belly and I had no idea he was coming out. Not 45 minutes, they made me wait 3 hours. So it was before then that I even saw him. Yeah, so then I saw him for about, it felt like 5 minutes, but I was probably in there for like 45 minutes or something. And then they were like, "Okay, like you need to get your rest now." So then they wheeled me out, and then I went downstairs to a ward that had 3 other women on it. But it was really weird because nobody had babies. It was just a ward of women that their babies were in the NICU, so it was just 4 bays, as if we just had like surgery. Then I didn't see him for another 12 hours because they took me from my bed, and I sort of hopped over to my hospital bed, which meant that they couldn't wheel the bed back and forth into the lift anytime I wanted to go see him. So then I had to wait 12 hours because I'd had a C-section. That was the amount of time that I then was able to sit up and go in a wheelchair. So yeah, then it was 12 hours till I saw him next, but obviously Luke was able to go visit him, so I've got some pictures, like screenshots on my phone of Luke FaceTiming the baby, which was just not how you want to be seeing your baby. And then the fun began of Oscar being in intensive care, and we were in there for 10 days, and I probably won't make a video on it because it makes me sad, so I'll write about it instead. But overall, looking back now, I'm glad that I missed labour. And I feel like I can say that because Oscar's okay. If he had something wrong with him, which he doesn't, then I don't think I would be able to say things like that. That I'm glad that it happened the way it did, but for selfish reasons. Because I healed really well from the C-section. I'm perfectly fine with the way that things happened on my end. Oscar was born with a hole in his heart, which Luke was also born with a hole in his heart, which healed by itself. And at Oscar's 5-month checkup, they did another scan on his heart and it's actually healed by itself. But they still said that the hole in his heart would have didn't have anything to do with why his heart rate went so high. So from the minute they took him out, his heart rate went back to normal. So he was just in hospital on breathing machines. They said that he didn't need the breathing machines, but they put them on the baby, helping them to breathe, because if they crashed and then needed breathing equipment, obviously the time it would take to do that, they might lose the baby. So they just keep it on just in case. And then if the baby does start to crash and does need help, then it's already on them. So I really don't want to scare anyone, but obviously, as you can tell, it's such a relief to me and Luke and everybody else that I went into hospital, because can you imagine if I'd have just gone to sleep and his heart rate was 210 and I'd just gone to sleep thinking he'd be okay in the morning. If there's anything to take from this, it's that if your baby stops kicking, even if you feel like you're the 10th time that week you've rung your midwife to say the baby's not moving, so what? Once you finish being pregnant, you never see them again. So you could be the most annoying patient that they have, but so what? If that's going to save your baby's life, ring that woman every day. Go and get monitored every day. It's so worth it. So I still think you can still have a really positive birth experience. Like I was saying, we were all making, not jokes, but it was so light-hearted in the theatre and everyone was so nice. It just really put me at ease. So you can still relax and you can still have a nice time, not a nice time, but you can still have a positive birth experience. And even though it's so scary what's going on, just try and stay calm, because then you'll be able to look back on it and say, do you know, I was really calm even though I was really scared, because I knew that I was in the best hands and I had my partner there with me and everything was okay. Instead of letting yourself get worked up and then looking back on that experience in hysterical tears or uncontrollably shaking. This is a really positive story and Oscar is absolutely thriving now. So I hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope I didn't scare anyone. But I will put lots of details in my blog. Milo, I'm trying to speak.